Okay, all right, moving on to item 4, reports. Mr. Praying.
Good evening, members of the board.
Good evening.
That would be you, Frank. Thank you. I got 3 things to report on, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I just took that down because I put it up. I'm not talking about what's on the board. Maria asked me not to write. So
That's not your handwriting anyway.
yeah, that's Maria's handwriting. All I have is my clipboard. So we're working on water and sewer feasibility study funded by the city and the board. We've got a draft of the wastewater generation from the airport and from select lease parcels between the airport and the lift station at, what do you call that road again? Racetrack Road?
Speedville.
Speedville Road.
Yeah. I'll get that eventually. Along the, CCUA had asked us that not only should we consider waste flow that's generated here, but also likely potential commercial development between here and there. So got a draft of that. It includes some maps and some calculations, a big spreadsheet. I'm gonna submit that to Maria and probably later this week in a package that can be sent out to the various stakeholders, CCUA, the city, et cetera. That's like the first deliverable, if you will. It's just focused on wastewater only. The next task for us after we get input on that will be we've started, but we need to finish the water generation, the water demand, potable water demand. So that's the next step. Any questions on that? Should have a deliverable at least by early next week on that. All right, runway 1129 lighting and signage replacement. We had been waiting for survey. We got that about 6 weeks ago. So I've got somebody working on taking the lighting design up to about a 90% completion level. We're gonna be replacing all of the edge lights. We're gonna be replacing signage within the runway environment and adding some exit signs. I've been talking to Luke and Scott a little bit about making sure the naming convention of taxiway Bravo and Charlie are accurate. There's a couple signs outside the runway environment that may need to get changed. Before you order signs, though, wait till we provide you with a drawing, maybe next week, that has our proposed signage layout. I think we want to propose what the taxiway Charlie connectors are called. Technically, the parallel section should be called Charlie, the end connector should be Charlie 1, and the midpoint connector should be Charlie 2. So this would be the time to do that while we're buying sign panels and new signs. I'm not sure, Luke, how many existing signs have the Charlie message on them, but one problem you may face is if you're replacing a panel that only has a C, to add a C-1, it kicks it outside the module size. So that may dictate the need to put a few more signs in the project. Either I'll try to get the DOT to pay for them, or at least put them in the project so you can get bid numbers on replacing those signs. So we're working on that. And I know I talked to you a couple days ago, so just get your quote, but don't pull the trigger on that until you get my signage layout. I also looked today for your airport diagram and I couldn't find it. Like I got to the FAA database, I searched on K42J and it said no document found. So
K out of there. Take K out.
I did that. I searched on 42J as well. It said no data found. So I don't know if they've pulled it down temporarily to make an update to it. I've literally never gone there and not found something. I found some old ones before, but anyway, I'm not sure if you faced the same thing, but.
I've been using AirNav, but,
So actually, the window wasn't on AirNav either.
really?
Yeah, so I don't know if it was just.
Wouldn't have anything to do with the ALP update that we just did?
No,
No?
no, it's your, we even went to the 5010 to see if there was a link to it there, and we saw the 5010
Have
form,
you
but
got 4 flight on your phone?
I know the answer.
anyway, if you find it, and like, it might have just been a glitch today. I looked twice today, so maybe they just had maybe their system was down or their server was,
Said that was through the database?
that was through, I can't remember the website, but through the FAA's airport diagram database.
Now, I've looked at AirNav also, and there is no document. They only have a sectional view
Right.
and a.
But I was
aerial
looking
view,
for your
but I think
official
4
airport
flight-
diagram.
I think 4 flight has it on it.
We'll look again tomorrow, but that's just a side note. So probably, we'll, before the end of the month, we'll have a set of drawings on that project for you to look at. Honestly, there's not a lot, once you review the package, it's a pretty simple project to finish, so we may be out to bid on that in maybe June, end of June timeframe. Put out bid packages for that.
And you're still gonna try to slip in that FBO sign or?
Yes,
kind
this
of
one
if you
out
can,
here. I
right?
haven't asked Donna yet. I was hoping to see her tonight, but,
Okay.
once I get the drawing, I can give her a graphic that says, would you entertain allowing us to add a sign? So
Okay.
I have that on my notes.
Okay.
All right, last thing is, at least for me, the rehab taxi lanes in the T-hanger area, that project is out to bid right now. We had a pre-bid meeting 2 weeks ago. We've distributed plans to a number of contractors. The bid opening is scheduled for May the 19th at 2 PM. And as I've mentioned before, I would ask the board to have a special called meeting on Tuesday, May the 24th, where for that project, you could entertain 3 different things. The first would be a tentative contract award to a contractor for the construction value. Our estimate is just right around $2 million for the whole project. And most of that is FAA funding, but we still need a significant amount of FDOT funding. Once we get bids on the 19th, we'll try to chuck that out into a spreadsheet so you can see how much money you have, what's committed, and what's still not covered. So that would be first thing, tentative contract award. Second thing is today I submitted to Maria a draft proposal for construction administration and inspection services for AECom to perform those. It's based on the same level of service we provided for the Taxiway A project, but it's shorter duration, so the dollar value is less. And I think Maria has already started the process of getting an independent fee estimate for that, but she'll have to review our proposal and reconcile it to the independent fee estimate. But that goes in the grant application as part of the funding request. So the board at least needs to have tentative agreement on that, even though we probably won't execute the agreement until you actually have the funds. Then the third thing would be, I'll have the whole grant application package with me on the 24th, and I'll be able to review what the total dollar amount is you're requesting, how much of that is FAA funds, and how much is FDOT funds. And if there's any funds that are not covered by either of those entities, you'll be able to see what, if any, part of the construction would be covered by your own funds if you choose to do that.
The way our contract is structured, does it allow AECom to perform design services as well as CI services?
Yeah.
You anticipate AECom staff doing the CI services, or are you gonna contract that out?
So the construction admin will definitely,
Be you, but what about CEI?
I don't have an inspector identified yet. The one that's worked here before, Don Cartwright, will be, he's long-term committed to another aviation project, so I will either be getting someone else from within our system or subcontracting with maybe CSI Geo, our materials testing lab, or someone locally. My preference would be not to subcontract with somebody from a distance, because we don't have to deal with per diems and a lot of travel cost. Get somebody who can travel to and from the job. But right now, it's budgeted as an AECom person, and if we have to go to a sub-consultant, we would do it at the same price.
Bill, I'm sorry, would you just refresh so I get this correct? The remaining funding for the project, those answers will not come until, was it after June,
Well, after May 19th,
after May 19th? Okay,
and you'll have decisions to make between the 19th and the 24th. We're gonna have to talk to the DOT, because remember, the DOT has already told us, that as of now, they don't have all the funding that's necessary. They have, I think they were maybe $300 and something thousand short. And they were looking for that funding, but until we actually have the real numbers based on bids. Remember too, we have multiple bid schedules, so one possible scenario is you can only award the highest priority bid schedules, and some of the work may have to be deferred until a future funding cycle.
Did you have good attendance at your bid opening today? Recently, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so actually we didn't.
Okay, it's non-mandatory,
It
obviously.
was non-mandatory, and, you know, in the post-COVID world, it's really kind of unpredictable. I'm bidding 4 projects now. I had one project that like 20 people showed up to. But I've also had others where 3 people showed up. We just bid a project a week and a half ago in Live Oak at the airport there. We had 2 bids, but both of them were right tight to the estimate. And the estimate was what we had been predicting since last October. So, knock on wood, that's at least one example that maybe the contracting market has some stability. Bidding a big job in Gainesville now, and we had, I think, 4 contractors showed up. 3 were lost in the moss, and only one of them had actually looked at the plans. But that doesn't bid for another 3 weeks. They've got plenty of time to catch up. But I say all that just to say, I still expect some volatility and unpredictable outcomes. You know, the price of fuel is big. The price of liquid asphalt is still going up. I have a job in South Florida now that's stopped because they can't get granite aggregate. So they have granite aggregate in Tampa, but they need it in Fort Myers. And so we stopped the project there. And as you know, the FAA asphalt requires all virgin aggregate.
Yeah.
One of which component is granite. It's not mined in Florida. It has to be shipped in. Some of it comes from as far away as Nova Scotia, and that's usually a pretty reliable supply chain, but apparently it's broken right now. And they're gonna expect about a month delay there. So whether the lack of aggregate and the liquid asphalt pricing, you know, liquid asphalt, keep this, somebody gets scared too. If you hear, obviously liquid asphalt emanates from crude oil. I think it just went up $70 a liquid ton, but because a ton of asphalt is only 5% liquid, it's like a $3.50 change to material that's already in the $180 range. So liquid asphalt itself is an increase, but it's an incremental increase. It's other things like trucking and availability of trucking and diesel costs seem to be having a bigger effect on what the price of asphalt is gonna be. So, I think that was all my items I had. Does anybody have any questions?
You had about, didn't you have about 4 contractors show up for that bid?
I think it was 4.
Okay.
Yep.
And then, did you mention when you anticipate the feasibility, the CCUA feasibility report to be completed?
The whole report is probably still 3 months away.
Okay.
This first deliverable is focused on wastewater. We've already identified that because of other commercial activities that are happening in the corridor, the capacity at the plant in the city limits is probably gonna be strained in the next 2 to 3 years.
Right.
But CCU is aware of that. We've told that once. We've met with them again recently. So, but they keep saying, okay, show us your numbers.
Yeah.
So this will be the first opportunity to actually show them a spreadsheet and graphics and get them to comment on it. We did that first because calculating potable water and solving the potable water problem is probably simpler than solving the sanitary problem.
Has anyone indicated that after the feasibility report is completed, what are the proposed next steps? Are there any?
Lynn, you want to take that?
So this is obviously the very first step for this to be included in the CCUA as far as any kind of build out. And we knew this going into it, there's no guarantee that this is going to work into their master plan and things of that nature. The idea behind this is that once we have these numbers and it's agreed upon with CCUA, then we can seek out additional funding outside of CCUA and get this taken care of outside of their master plan.
Okay, so that would be a legislative appropriations
Exactly.
request.
Is CCUA, is that a private corporation or is that a government entity?
It's not a government entity.
Okay.
Scott, you can help us.
It's an authority.
Yeah, it's an authority, but it's not.
It's a special district, I think.
It is.
Okay.
Special district.
Okay.
But they operate on they operate, I believe, as an enterprise fund, for
Okay.
lack of a better description. They don't do things unless they can pay for them
Okay.
through their rate structure and customer base.
Okay.
Yeah, it was interesting in our meeting with Jeremy and some others from CCUA that they don't receive any subsidies from counties or other governments, the way I understood. Everything goes through their master plan and then their CIP, I guess.
They are
Process.
similar to the airport authority.
Yeah,
It's
they
not-
do.
They're not subsidized by any government or any other agency. They're self-sufficient.
Is there a follow-up meeting scheduled yet with that same group?
No. We're waiting for the numbers to
You
come.
know, who should have, in hindsight, you know, who should have been in that meeting? It was Rob Bradley.
Well, this meeting right here was just to make sure that CCUA was, we were giving CCUA what they needed to see to move forward with their requirements or their asks of this study. This was not a next steps. This is making sure that we were on the right track.
It's a coordination meeting.
Yeah.
It wasn't, we didn't set out to make any decisions or extract any commitments from them.
Is
But
it,
maybe Rob would be
Well-
something for the next.
I would think so,
Sure.
because at the Clay EDC meeting this past month, he had comments about CCUA.
And he's one that will definitely bring in I don't wanna bring him in prior to this study being completed, because up until then, it's just working. It's
Right.
really between, AECom and CCUA, making sure that the data is correct.
I guess the reason I was asking that is, so when they ran to the RV park, that's a high customer density. But beyond that customer density per mile coming out or per whatever the unit is, it's gonna be pretty costly to come out here for them to just serve 20 customers. I mean, and that's maybe why you get Bradley involved, to see if the state is willing to just help with the infrastructure funding or.
There's definitely different vehicles for funding sources that we'll navigate through once we're done with this study, and that Rob's definitely going to be a part of that, so is our entire delegation really. And then grant opportunities through both counties. But right now, they're really, CCUA is really relying on the airport to come up with the funds, or the airport and the city and the county to come up with the funds to build it. They
Okay.
have no interest in putting.
Yeah, I'm just saying if they had to spend $2 million to run these pipes out here for 20 customers, the return is not gonna be there at all.
It's a pretty good gig if you can get it, because it's kind of like the example George Egan gave. It's kind of like if you say, okay, I'm gonna build your toll road for you. I'm gonna pay for it and I'm gonna build it, and then I'm gonna give it to you, and I'm gonna let you collect the tolls.
Right. Yeah, that would be a good thing for them, so,
So,
yeah, if it works. Hey, one question before you step down. So in fueling a rather large airplane the other day, a rather large old airplane, we had a fuel spill on the avgas area. Now, it was not enough to be an environmental concern. It was addressed immediately, but it brought back memory about the asphalt there. And did you tell me that that's a special asphalt?
Yeah.
Should we have a sealer put on that, or is there a time frame in which that asphalt is resistant against petroleum products, or will it eventually start to break down like regular asphalt?
Well, it will eventually start to break down, but it should be, I mean, unless it's just subject to repeated spills.
Okay,
Frankly, it's the hydraulic fluids that are worse.
Okay.
They sit and penetrate. Avgas volatilizes pretty quickly.
okay,
So even a big avgas spill, it's volatilizing as soon as it hits the ground.
okay,
But the main mechanism of it being fuel resistant is it has very few air voids, like 1.5% of the mix is air voids as opposed to 3 to 5%.
okay,
So there's more liquid asphalt, and it's an asphalt that has rubber additive. So
So it repels.
So it repels and reflects. Hopefully the avgas stayed on the surface until
it did,
mopped
it
up.
did, none of it,
absorbent pads.
yeah, we got absorbent on it immediately, well, we got containment, and then we had absorbent for the little bit. But I just remember years ago when you used to, I mean, we used to sump our airplanes back in the 70s and 80s, and you just throw it out. Well, pretty soon the asphalt started getting soft.
Yeah,
So I was talking to Mr. Kirkland about should
because
we
it was
seal it?
penetrating into the air voids.
Right, and then holding it there and then,
You might consider a sealer, but I think the sealer would be in the 20 plus range.
okay,
Again, unless you had like a big hydraulic leak or something that was repetitive that wasn't dealt with.
Okay.
And frankly, there's only been one sealer that I've ever thought in the last 35 years was very good at that. And it's almost the same cost as just replacing
The asphalt.
asphalt, mill off an inch and put an inch back.
Okay. Well, just.
You will eventually need to rehab that area, but I think you should get plenty of life out of that.
Well, it didn't seem to affect it. We got some oil absorbent on it pretty immediately or whatever, and then.
Good chance to test out the placing and the supply of your spill kit.
Yeah, exactly. And we did. So, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sprang. In his presentation, he did mention about the special meeting that we need to go ahead and set. So that will be, if it's good for everyone's calendar, Tuesday, May the 24th.
We've already
Ms.
got it.
Cersei already sent it out.
Yeah, we've
Okay.
already got it.
All right,
6 o'clock.
good.
Yep.
When did you send that out?
A month ago. Last meeting.
Last meeting, yeah.
Was it?
Well, the day after.
I'm sorry, I've been moving, so I'm gonna use that for my excuse. I'm totally out of sync.
That one.
Mr.
I will-
Kirk, Mr. Kirk, we changed the FBO hours too, in case you didn't know.
We're now only open from 8 to 10 a.m. daily.
All right,
Put it on my
moving
calendar.
on. Let's see. All right, AECom Airport Professional General Engineering Consulting Service Contract. This is our 5-year master contract that we have with our engineering consultant. There is a question in there about a clause. We have both of our attorney and AECom's attorney exchanging emails to come to some resolution with that. I put a call into Mr. Taylor today, did not get a call back. So I'm going to ask that we table this till next month and, or at least till the 24th meeting, because we need to get this contract signed so that then AECom can continue to do engineering for future projects. So,
Can I just add one thing?
Sure.
That it wouldn't surprise me if you encounter the same legalese issue with any and or all other firms of that capacity.
and I think what's going to happen, it's going to come back to the board. We're just going to have to make a decision that, given the track record we've had with AECom, good working relationship, their performance, professionalism, we may just move on and accept the verbiage as is.
But when we have that option.
Right.
Any client has that option.
Right. All right, so we'll bring that back. Minimum operating standards, final approval. As you're well aware, over the months that we have reviewed that and revised it, Ms. Cersei had sent it out for other review and input.
And nothing was received. There was a couple of questions from like our flight schools, clarification on, from some of our existing tenants.
Flight instructor.
Right, yeah, and there's, other than that, there's been no concerns. I think I've been able to answer their questions, and so I would say with what we have in place, we can comfortably move forward.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the minimum operating standards that we have reviewed and set forth.
So moved.
All right. Mr. Fryer, motion. Mr. Dagenais, second. Any other questions or discussion about that?
Does that mean we're finalized then, if we vote
Yes.
yes? Okay,
Yes.
I shall vote
No,
yes.
I think we should think about it a few more weeks.
We don't want to influence your vote, but you better vote.
So all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Finally approved. Thank you very much. All right, moving on. Natural Resources, Mr. Richard.
Yes, so had the fortune of entertaining a proposed bidder on the timber sale today. Was notified of that, so Mr. LJ Kite came out today, and Scott, and we showed him where the property was as far as where we're considering doing some thinning and or clearing. And so I would anticipate that we'll have some response. If I recall correctly, the contract ends, the contract request for bids is May 19th. And so we'll see how many folks are interested in that timber sale. Mr. Kite did indicate that the timber market is as volatile as any other commodities right now. And so he did share that perhaps if it's not a favorable market and we don't get good responses, then we could just delay that a month or so.
and reconsider that when the market is perhaps less volatile. So I do accept his information that he shared today, but there's no reason to make a decision until we get the bids in. So one other thing I did bring in this, sorry, I meant to bring this in before, it's just from the last turkey hunt. It's got some notes from our participants. And then there's a handful of photos in here as well, if you're wanting to see those from the spring, from the March 25 through 27 Air Ops Veterans Hunt that we hosted.
Great, excellent. Mr. Richard, do we want to add this item to our May 24th
Yes, sir, that would be my
item?
recommendation.
Okay,
Well, yes, sir, we could.
you're getting
Yes.
the 19th.
Yeah, we
right?
Might as well execute that
Right.
quicker rather than waiting until early June.
Right, okay, sounds good.
That's all I have to share.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Fryer, airfield updates?
Okay, we had the C-54, which is nothing more than a military designation for Douglas DC-4, the old 4 radial engine airplane, and it has finally departed. It departed last week. But what I wanted to share with you is myself and one of our local flying instructors share the Keystone Airport administrative duties for Facebook. And I was utterly amazed at some of the photos I had taken and some of the videos. But on the departure of that airplane, when several of us, Luke, Maria, myself, we went out there and we had about 25 or 30 people on the front porch. Bruce was here. And the guys couldn't get the airplane started. The pilots couldn't get it. So everybody left and then the mechanic went up there and he got it running. What I wanted to share with you, there's at least 29,997 people now that know where Keystone Airport is. Between the shares, if you know how the algorithms and everything work with Facebook, is when people share, it goes to all kind of people in their groups. But we were getting, I think Maria told you that one of the postings I had 18,000 people had seen it. But the biggest one was 29,997 people. So some people on this planet now know where Keystone Heights Airport's at. So it's out of here.
Thank you, Scott, for not only that post with the C-54, but also with the emergency management training too.
Yeah, I put on there about the firefighter training that Maria did. She did a great job. Every time she'd say, well, I might need you in the class, I'd say, I've got to go out in the field. But Luke helped her, and they both did a really great job. 6 classes. How many firefighters?
I think it was well over 100 people that we pushed through.
Wow. Yeah, they were very busy last Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Yeah.
So, anyway. Hangar floors have been completed in corporate, which is F2 and 3. We never referred to it as that, but Earthworks completed those. They did a really great job, and I'm sure we're sending some really great checks if we haven't already. The 2 tenants that are tentatively going in there have both requested, and I've told them, or we've pretty much told them, they're going to have to pay for their own toilets or any bathroom facilities, but they want to know if they're going to be able to tie in. So if you recall, I told y'all probably, I want to say it's been 4 months ago, we had Keystone Plumbing come out and run the camera system. So that cost right there, Sam told me he thought it was going to be around the $3,000 mark, but it could go as high as $4,000. He's got to put a lift pump in there. So I don't want a motion on it tonight. I want to see where we're at moving forward to make sure these tenants are going to agree to take these hangars, but that may be coming up next month. So just giving you a heads up that we might need to vote on that because it's beyond Ms. Cersei's or Mrs. Cersei's purchasing amount. Happy to announce that Mr. Luke Ford has all of the lights on all the T hangars, on the fueling station, and even the MHD Rockland warehouse next door, even that light up top are all converted to LED now. And our flying instructor that's watching right now that complains about the beacon, he says he doesn't need the beacon now. He can find it by the glow. So thank you, Luke, for getting all our lights working again. If anybody trips out of here, they've got no excuse. So, In mowing, I discovered and brought this to Mr. Prang's attention, there is some erosion on the south side of Airport Road on the culverts that go underneath to Crystal Lake. And my concern was the erosion, I don't know what the term is called, but it is concaving underneath the roadway, very slightly.
Scour.
Okay, it's scouring into that. So he suggested we talk with Herb Horn, and I reminded Herb again today. I think he met with Miss Cersei, but anyway, I had to run to the house for something. When I came back, Herb was down there in the ditch measuring. So gonna try to get an estimate on that, but we've already had a settling point years ago and had asphalt filled. So there is some settling going on there, and I think because of those unusual water flows we had in late February and early March, it's just pounding there. So I think we're gonna have to take action on this sooner or later. You didn't express any immediate concern, but it's gonna have to be dealt with, right?
Yes, I don't think it's an immediate hazard, but I have looked at it every time I've been out here.
Can we attenuate it a little bit longer to reduce the velocity and the intensity when it goes through that cross drain?
Yeah, you mean like build a
Well, just more.
ditch block upstream? Or- Yeah, that would have to be studied.
Okay.
I did notice last week during the Lake County meeting, we had the RSNH report open where they inspected the entrance road. They did note erosion there, but they didn't note any scouring at the outfall. So I think it's a relatively recent phenomenon. It's something that I know there's been a depression on the road for a long time, but that's been stable. But I think the scouring from under the end of the pipes is relatively new, last 1 or 2 rainy seasons maybe.
Okay,
So,
The scouring's on the downstream side of the cross drain?
it is.
Oh, okay. Well, it's not.
It's a pretty significant drop from
scoured a
the
couple
culvert.
feet back up under the ends of the pipe.
Oh, okay.
They're not fully unsupported, but they're nearly unsupported at the
So
last joint of pipe.
theoretically, it'd be to saw cut the cross drain out, dig out the pipe, new pipe, new base, new asphalt.
So that would be a long-term solution. I had proposed to Herb a stopgap measure, which was to bulkhead the end of the pipe where the scour is
Okay.
and form a bevel that he can punch holes in, pump it full of like a 1200 PSI mix,
Right.
a pea gravel mix, and just let concrete fill the scoured hole. And then when you strip the forms, you'll have a bevel that directs the water downstream. There's a pretty big drop there. I don't know historically.
Washout.
Yeah, I don't know historically where the ditch bottom has been. The ditch is just a mess downstream. There's all kind of trees falling into it. The other thing would be to come in with some pretty big concrete rubble riprap sizes. And, I mean, there's at least, what is it, to the bottom? It's probably 15 feet from the invert of the pipe down to the ditch bottom.
Okay. So you
So half
anticipate,
of that, I would say, needs to be filled with riprap, just to stop the scour.
her providing a quote for the short-term solution?
He was gonna look at it and size up the short-term solution just to see what that cost. And the reason I was suggesting, let's look at a stopgap, something that's a couple of years is, I think there are people hopeful that eventually one of the projects that RSNH put in their TPO report might be undertaken, and when you're reconstructing and widening that road anyway.
Yeah, they're gonna have
You're gonna
to
have to
do
deal with
cross
that
drains.
culvert, so deal with the cross drain completely complete replacement at that point. But it's not a hazard at this point, but again, Scott and Luke are helping me watch it weekly, so we can make sure it doesn't get worse, and I'll send you a picture of it, just so you have a sense.
Yeah, I'll stop and take a look at it on the way out.
Okay, if you're gonna look at it tonight, be very careful, because there's a chimney as you're walking down to it. And there's a washout, a chimney washout that's big enough for you to fall into.
Okay, so keep
You
my
don't want
hands
to get
out.
too close.
The truck is still in the culvert tomorrow morning.
Yeah. Or you can borrow a parachute.
Cause I don't think we'd come get you till morning. to be dead honest.
Fair enough.
Luke hasn't got lighting down there, so.
Daylight.
Exactly. Okay, last month we talked about Wayne's Retreat. The concrete has been done. I don't know what's happened to Mr. Weber, so I called him just before I came in here. The last phase is the siding, the paint, and he thinks that he can even go in and do the ceiling in there. There's some issues with that, with the remaining funds that we have, so we're not even gonna try to bid that out because I think any other contractor would be significantly more. And he estimates he can get on that about 3 weeks from now, so I'm gonna try to hold him to that.
Can we explore getting a sign as well? Not through Mr. Weber, but through whomever?
Yeah, we've talked about that, so. And you know, we're right now, we haven't officially named it, but we've been calling it Wayne's Retreat, and I like that. Now, I had suggested the gopher hole at Wayne's Retreat because we know how fond he was of gophers, but at some point we need to, you know, we do need to name it, and I think we can get a showcase and get a nice sign for a very reasonable price, so. When you were talking about the signage, exiting runway 1129, Mr. Prang.
Yes.
So I was talking to Luke, and he did get estimates about probably a month and a half, 2 months ago, the first time we did it, I think.
January.
Okay, so it's even further back. So I asked him again, and then that's when he told me that or maybe you told me you'd be paying for part of it, or you were hoping through that grant. We do, so I just want the board to know this for FYI. We're gonna meet in the morning about not the budget for next year, but just where we're at in the budget this year. And I wanted to go ahead and get those sign panels because there's a lot of them that are faded. They're supposed to be yellow and red, and some of them are almost like an off-white now. They're so bad. The ultraviolet degradation. However, they're functioning right now, and they are functional. So one thing I suggested this afternoon is maybe we go ahead and budget that for next year because we have so many things we've been spending money on. What was the cost? About $3,200 just for the panels. This isn't the lights, the structure of the sign, this is just reinserts, so.
That's for all the panels or one panel?
That's for the panels, excluding the ones in the runway environment for 1129 that Mr. Prank said they will be replacing in the project.
So all of them on this side of the field, when 523 was rehabbed and taxiway Alpha, they've all been upgraded to new signage and they're fine. This is on the far end of the field over by the firm and on taxiway Bravo. And then that's when Luke discovered one indicates it's taxiway Bravo and it's actually Charlie. And now Bill's telling us further, it should be Charlie 1 and Charlie 2 exits. It does kind of a loop there. But anyway, so I think we can get by until our fiscal year begins, October 1st? So we're gonna maybe put that in our budget for then. And then, the final thing was didn't we have the fire pump inspection since the last board meeting? Or did we report that? We just didn't report the estimate on the money.
Yeah. Yes, sir, I believe that's correct.
So the packing on the diesel fire pump is leaking substantially. And I think it was $3,800 quoted, which actually seemed to be reasonable to me. We had those same type of pumps in the power plant. That will redo the packing and everything. I don't know if you want us to, because of the dollar amount, it's kind of a sole source thing. It has to be a fire company. Do you want us to make a motion on that for those funds of $3,800? Or do you want us to review what our budget is first and then come back next month? It's not in any real danger right now, but it's got to be addressed at some point.
Yeah, let's see where you are in your budget spending
Okay.
and see what you've got.
Yeah,
Okay.
that way we can just kind of present everything all together.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would probably be best.
Okay. And other than that, one thing I noticed is your name needs to be changed again on the website, on the airport website. Yes.
Oh, okay.
And Mr. Dagenaw, he does not have his pretty picture on our website yet, so you've got to get that, where he can look like a goofball like the rest of us on the website.
Okay.
So we've got to get him, yeah.
our website.
Just on yours, and then get Dave's picture on there and his,
All right.
and that's all I've got. Luke, did you have anything? I mean, as long as we're, okay, okay.
All right. Chief Denny, it says you're not present, but you certainly are. And
Surprise.
we're glad to have you back. Any other updates for us?
Pulling up everything, so what you guys have been hearing the last few days, the HIMARS, and detonations, those should start slowing down. Tomorrow is gonna be the last big day, and then everything will start slowing down, and getting much quieter, allegedly around the 6th. Everybody will start clearing out. But it's annual training season, so mortars will begin on the 12th and go to the 15th. Now, given weather and all the different constraints, that may move a little to the left or the right, but we can expect those to happen. So that's all we have for May, and then I will be able to give a better forecast in June.
Okay,
Once their training gets locked in.
excellent. Very good. Thank you for that update. Ms. Cersei, airport.
All right, let me get over here real quick. I think it's probably best if I just go through actually as the propeller reports that I just printed for you for yesterday's meeting for city council. Let's see, we talked about the spring gobbler already, Mr. Bashar harvesting. Sun and Fun was right after our last board meeting. That was April 5th through the 10th. I think we figured we probably sold somewhere between that 7 to 10 day period, because a lot of times pilots will, as some of you probably know, come in even a few days early, especially if they're going to be doing setting up and being a display. I'd say we were somewhere around 4,000 gallons. So we had really great traffic, and we kept watching it. We were actually the lowest in the state. And so
Is that good?
that was very good.
Oh.
Yes. In fact,
What's the cost?
yeah, we were able, I think we ended up having to get a new load on that Monday.
Right.
I mean, we literally ran out on Sunday. So, and we continue to stay as one of the lowest. I think Palaca still might be in there despite some pricing questions going on with them, but we're still pushing it through. So we saw a lot of new aircraft come through during that time frame. As we mentioned before, just a little bit ago with Mr. Fryer, I did conduct last Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, a total of 6 classes with both Bradford County and Clay County Emergency Management, first responders, law enforcement. This was a class that I had conducted back in 2016 that was brought on with the help of John Ward. So this year I teamed up with, again, John Ward and Brad Witt, who's emergency management with Bradford County, and we pushed through probably about 125 people total. It was excellent feedback that we got. It's something that I think, because of the constant, not necessarily turnover, but just new employees who are going through both county systems, that an annual familiarization is helpful. And obviously, as much as we're changing out here, and as much as we changed 2 years ago with all of our access perimeters being upgraded, this facility here, the activity that's going on here is quite different than back in 16. So it was a real eye-opener to both counties. And we'll be planning a hot wash meeting with both counties probably next week, so that we can figure out how we want to continue to do the training. As well, we will start to plan for sometime in the fall an aircraft crash training courses as well. That's something that's never been offered out here. I think, as I had mentioned back in 2016, when I asked any of the participants if any of them had been in any type of that type of training, there was one gentleman who had, just only because he was in the military. So that's quite a need, and there was expressed a lot of concern that they don't have that type of training. So we'll make sure that happens for both the general aviation aircraft as well as these P3s. So we'll be partnering with a representative from Rockland so that we can make sure that that's adequate training.
Does Camp Blanding offer that level of training for staff as well? Does anyone on that side of the fence conduct?
I would have to check with the fire department that's on the post.
Mm-hmm.
However, they're actually not associated with Camp Landing. There's
Right.
a regular fire
Landman.
department.
They're I
Clay
think
County.
It's Clay County.
it's Clay County, and they attended as
Okay.
well. And the truck, I don't know if you've seen it, it's pretty cool. It was paid for by Blanding, but they wrapped it in
Camo.
like camo, and on one side it's got a UH-60, on the other one is a jet, fighter jet, so it's.
Parked on the road over there and we couldn't
Protecting
find
our-
it. There's a camo.
Protecting our protectors, I think is what it said.
Is that, yeah, so, and so to answer your question,
I was just trying to think if someone else could participate, a partner like Camp Blanding, as far as regionally,
Right.
how it would be more valuable.
yeah. And we've already actually got those people in place.
Okay.
Both from a volunteer standpoint of retired, but then also some active, which is, I believe he's part of Clay County.
So, so to elaborate on that, so you have, and I don't want to say regular, because there's nothing regular about being a firefighter. I mean, it's a very intensive job. But ARF is what we refer to on airfields. It's air rescue, firefighting, I think. And so one of our not tenants, but he lives at Melrose Landing, flies in and out of here. He was part of an ARF unit. And then, is it Ludwig?
Yes,
Bob, Brandon's father, he works at Jackson International, and we may get him to come down here too. So some of the things, without getting into a whole spiel here, when you go to cut in an aircraft, the reason they have rescue here, decals around it, you may want to go there because typically electric wires, hydraulics, fuel lines are routed away from that entry point. And this is what we need to teach. And the other thing is, in our small GA aircraft, there's things like a master switch. Your car doesn't typically turn off the battery, just turn off the ignition. So there's some things that are unique to aircraft that we want firefighters to know about. And like I said, we did this years ago. We took the cowling off of my airplane, and we had some other airplanes showing some of that. But when you're talking about ARF versus a regular firefighter, and again, I use that word lightly, all firefighters are well-versed. But it's kind of like going from, an associate's or a bachelor's degree to a master when you're an ARF. I mean, you're specifically talking about aircraft rescue, so.
Last night, when I presented to City Council, and Councilman Brown, who is involved with the Melrose Fire Department, asked if on any additional training, could they also be involved? And I got thinking about, well, they're kind of out there, but actually Melrose Landing Airfield would probably, they would be closer to respond to any kind of aviation event there. So I told him that we'd certainly get with you about that and add them to the list.
certainly.
But you don't anticipate all 160 plus firefighter paramedics going through this course?
No, I'm sure it would
Be a
be,
smaller group.
it would be limited, and I would assume that's, I'm gonna allow the counties to deem,
Probably the stations that are closest in proximity would be
Right.
ones that would benefit most.
because as of now, if we were to have an accident here, and was some discussion too, they're all gonna have to talk amongst themselves,
going?
because the closest unit that would have an ARF unit would probably be Gainesville, Palatka.
Palatka doesn't have, well,
No, they have a state.
that's right,
Station right next to
they have a through the fence, but I'm not sure if they're ARF trained.
They are, yeah, yes. I
Are they?
confirmed
Okay,
that they have a truck there.
okay.
And then, of course, Jacksonville, those will be our closest ones as of now. So we'll be planning that probably for fall time, just because I hate to have us all out there in the dead of summer and go through that grueling training. So we'll be planning that for this fall. Okay. Okay, just this past week, or last week, I'm sorry, that was Friday. And forgive me, Chairman Lynn and I were in there trying to get the camera system up. So I don't know if you had reported on our meeting that we just had on Friday, some people from Clay County.
I did not.
Okay.
I didn't know if Lynn might do that during her update, so.
We'll tag team this one. So there was some information going kind of back and forth, talking about another additional access road off of 21 coming into the airport, as well as kind of a little bit of conversation on that runway extension that I think all of us are kind of like, there's so many other things, obviously, and we just talked about some of those in terms of our priorities. And this was the whiteboard that we used on Friday, just talking about airport priorities, so that Clay County could really understand what our needs are today, not necessarily so much another access road off of 21 and runway extensions and all of that. So we invited them to come in on Friday. The county manager came in, the county engineer, and what's the title of the?
Charlie Latham, he is environmental services, he's a assistant county manager.
Okay, all right. And then as well as Betsy Condon, who is our Clay County Commissioner for this area. Lynn, myself, Bill Prang, and Chair Kirkland attended as well. I think it was a really good hour that we spent being able to talk about what our priorities are and really kind of try and keep it focused on that. We got them up to date on the feasibility study, funding opportunities, the West Side development, and really the help that we need from there. Of course, there's always this fine line between Bradford County, Clay County, and how do we somehow create a partnership that, yeah, sometimes if either county may end up putting some money into the other county. But as a whole, it's here to benefit the airport as a community airport. So I felt like, we walked away with some good stuff. I think that as we move forward, so that we can get the entire airport board involved, as you know, we'd have to post it and to get it all together. We really wanted to just do a preliminary meeting just to kind of, feel everything out. And then I think maybe as we move forward, we did decide to, and I'm looking at you because I want to make sure I'm being accurate, that we discussed that for future, maybe we start talking more like on a quarterly basis. It could be in the form of a workshop so that we get everyone's, kind of discussion points heard. So I don't know if you walked away with, or if you heard more from Betsy or.
I think that it was a really good conversation that was had between the airport and Clay County. I think that it's one that absolutely needs to be done more often. As with Bradford County, I think what we've experienced over the past several months is that Bradford and Clay County have their own vision of what the airport is, but they really don't understand the mechanics of the airport. So inviting them down here to understand the needs, especially the timing could have been more perfect because Maria, who's a rock star, just conducted that training, and the one entrance and one exit off of State Road 100 and how that impacts State Road 100 and everybody's safety was a huge point of conversation that wasn't necessarily on the radar. So those types of conversations need to continue being had. They were extremely excited. They left really wanting to understand more, and so I've encouraged David and Maria both to reach out and help develop those relationships, bring them down here, get them excited about the airport, and have a base understanding of what's going on now, based on other than what they're looking at from the outside. So lots of good things. They're excited to be able to partner possibly with Bradford. It's going to take a little bit of finesse, like anything else with dealing with county lines, but they're eager to have that conversation.
Okay, any questions on that meeting?
Did anyone discuss like just annexing into one county?
You? Would you like me to put that on the June meeting for you?
You bring the quarter, we'll flip it.
All right, that sounds good.
Before you move on,
The highest bidder.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah.
yeah. So you mentioned, and it probably went over a lot of people's head in the room, but that we ran out of fuel for a few days. I'd like to elaborate on that. This is something I've just learned recently. What is our
He
avgas?
said it was one
only a
day,
day.
half a day.
No. What is our avgas? What is that tank, the farm hold?
The tank is a 10,000 gallon tank with a capacity of right at 9,000 gallons because you have to have an expansion room at the top.
Right, because the fuel as it heats up and cools, it
So 9,000 is
changes.
all we can hold.
So one thing, if any of our tenants ever call you, and for anybody that may be listening to our meeting, I have found out what a balancing act it is for Luke trying to get this fuel in here. And I furthermore understand our previous airfield manager, the difficulties I was not aware of. What you run into is because we're not like a filling station on the highway where there's a constant flow of cars. Aircraft, depending upon the type, the C-54, we put, 1,678 gallons in it? It's probably the highest that meter's ever been, you mentioned, and it probably is. But when you have a Cessna 150, they may come in and get 15 gallons of fuel, and then you have a Beechcraft Baron comes in and gets 160 gallons. There's a lot of variables in there. So what Luke is challenged with, and it's even worse post-COVID, did you or did you not tell me that used to, when you called the distributor, generally the tanker was here the next morning, or the next day?
By the second day for sure.
Now, sometimes the deliveries are coming 2 or 3 days later, and I don't want your job on that, and you won't either, but you've got to guesstimate when you're gonna get the fuel.
He's already
low enough.
intimidated, don't say that to him. Hey, Mike, let that go over your head. We'll talk about it later.
So what you're running into is you're trying to guess when that fuel is gonna get low enough to accept a whole load. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, if you take 8,000 gallons, our cost per gallon goes up quite a bit, as opposed to they want you to take the whole 8,500. Now, jet fuel's almost as bad, but the worst part about it is when he goes out to fuel one of these P3s, our capacity in that farm is 12,000, and you can keep around 10,000 in it? 11. So he goes out here this morning and puts, say, 1,400 gallons on, but tomorrow morning he may be putting 3,400 gallons on. The addition of the leased truck has given us a great buffer, having 2,200 gallons in one tanker and 5,000 in the other. But he's still trying to figure out the flight schedule, and if they cancel next door, it throws a wrench. All I'm saying is when our airfield manager, because of a miscalculation, runs out of fuel, you need to know the rest of the story. It is a balancing act. I wish we had higher capacity, volume that we could hold, but I didn't realize what a tight wire it is trying to figure out.
It's a sign.
And you're gonna get down, you gotta get down to a certain point on that 100 low lead or on the jet fuel before you can call and order that tanker. So I just wanted, you said we ran out, and we did, we ran out, but we were only out for half of one day or something.
Yeah.
So,
And we didn't anticipate this C-54 taking fuel
right.
as well, so.
So that is something, I just want y'all to be aware of. This guy's been doing a great job, and this guy will do just as good a job, I'm sure, but just have some understanding that there's a lot of mathematics involved trying to get it here. And the weight changes based on the temperature.
Yes.
As to what they can put on the tanker. So sometimes if it's cooler, they can put on more,
Correct.
and if it's warmer, they put on less. So anyway, I just wanted to put that in there.
Oh, thank you. And just to follow up then, fuel sales update, just so everyone's aware. Luke just ran the numbers for me so I could give it on the report for city council, but between March and April, we pumped just for MHD alone, 42,000 gallons of fuel. So it's been a good, productive couple of months. As he mentioned, they flew yesterday, today, I think again on Thursday. It'll slow down for about a week or so, and then we'll pick back up again. So we continue to maintain, certainly. So hopefully that'll continue throughout the summer as well. Employee hires and schedule update. As I mentioned, Mike Sherbach today is his first day joining the 42J team, and we're really excited to have you here. So as I mentioned, now it's official. We've had all the Sherbach boys work here. All you boys.
Except for one, the newly born.
Oh, the new river, yeah, Brian has a
We'll hire him in
new
a little
son.
while.
Give him about 16 years.
Okay, all right, good.
So in his title will be, Luke is training him, but Mike will be our new airfield manager for those who don't know him.
Yep, so, and also we have brought on Joni Hot Dog, better known as Joni Miller. She's coming in as part-time work as well on our airfield side, landscape guru that she is, and mowing, and she's helping in here. She's even working today on her day off, getting us pots for plants and stuff, so she's like, I just can't stay away. And we will be looking at 2 other part-time as well. Again, it's got to be the right fit, because it's got to be somebody who respects the aviation and is somebody who's self-motivated as well. So we'll be meticulously working on that. Scott, are you looking at me because you'd like to fill out an application?
No, I do have a question though. You're not working Joni on Mondays, are you?
Possibly down the road. Why? Oh, because it's Munchie Monday. Well, she's working around her hot dog career. So it's possible.
I think the community would be really, really upset if she
Yeah.
missed one of her hot dog days
Yeah.
to come out here. And
Especially every other Monday.
Yeah, okay, well, we'll work on that.
Okay, good.
I'll work around. And then, right now, we are working on the weekends, we are not opening up the FBO. We're trying this through the month of May, just to see kind of what feedback we're getting. I think we've only had 1 instance, maybe 2. One was really, he didn't call ahead for Jet A. Thankfully, Scott helped us out on, and you
There
helped.
was 3, there was 2 this weekend I came out on, but one was, it wasn't a pump malfunction, it was a card reader, his card. So really, when you get down to it, it was 2 sales on 2 separate weekends, so.
Yeah.
And if that's all it is, and so here's the other thing, when pilots are flying, they're supposed to maintain a certain amount of reserve fuel so that when they get to an airport, if there's nobody there, there's not fuel, they can fly 10 minutes away to Gainesville, or they can fly 15 minutes to Palatka, but there really wasn't any benefit of him, anybody, at least not right now here on the weekends. It's just been too slow.
Yeah, and again, I think it was just, Morgan would sit here in the front office and then nobody would come in,
Well, we're not
and-
the only business to change our practices to have some flexibility with the labor market either.
No, not at all. And I think people have been, understandable about that. And also, it's certainly, having this new building allows us to have that flexibility where we really didn't have that in our old
Agreed.
FBO.
Yeah.
So pilots still have access into restrooms, refreshments. They even have, there's a courtesy car key that we have on that side. So if somebody does come in and needs to use the car for whatever reason, they have that ability to do that.
It might make it simpler to hire other folks that are interested in working for the airport too, not to have to commit to potentially working on the weekends
Right.
unnecessarily.
Right, yeah, and it could be down the road too, as we're in our growing season, that we offer there to be additional hours that can be worked if Airfield wants to come out and get caught up on mowing or something like that. But the FBO just doesn't need to be maintained. So we're gonna try that through the month of May and see what our feedback is, and certainly welcome any ideas that any of you might have, so. All right, and then tomorrow, as Scott had mentioned, I'm gonna be sitting down, not necessarily for the overall budget, but just really sitting down with Luke and Mike and Scott so that we can discuss. I know that we're well over budget on some of the airfield items, mainly our fuel farm, because the prices were a lot higher than what we had anticipated when we created the budget last year. So we're gonna go over some of those. And then there were some just unanticipated costs associated with repair work. So we wanna be able to look at that, so then when we sit down as a board and look at the amendments that need to be made, probably in June, we'll be prepared for that.
Does our budget allow for a contingency to be put in there? Have we ever utilized or considered a contingency?
Contingency fund?
A percentage contingency?
We could, but I think that those funds, we need to identify. I think that would be probably better thing to do.
Well, one thing that you did do is you planned on the conservative side based on what Rockland stated their flying schedule would be. So that put us in a
It's a
more
contingency of
favorable.
sorts.
Right.
It is in a way,
We
so.
pretty much almost cut that by almost in half versus what they stated was.
And did
gonna be on
did
the
that
book.
match up fairly well in the end?
It did, and I think we'll probably see that even when when Kara comes next month to give the audit report. I'm positive or feeling positive that that's going to be the result of us doing the same approach as last year.
And one thing that, and I did forget to update y'all on one thing is we are progressing forward with the 20-foot bat wing. It looks like we're on schedule, or we think we are for the end of this month, May. But one thing that we're gonna be in the driver's seat on in a lot better way is all this new equipment we've got. The repairs in the past have killed us. I mean, trying to keep this stuff, the bandages and the baling wire on this stuff. That new Kubota tractor's only got 18 hours on it so far. It's performing flawlessly. John Deere's in really great shape. It's been taken good care of. We'll have a new bat wing. And we're hoping a lot of these repair costs, and thanks to Luke and some efforts on my part, we're actually starting to get caught up on things and getting back in a better place so that hopefully this coming year, other than the cost, the consumptives like diesel fuel, gasoline or whatever, our repair costs, I'm hoping will go down significantly. And then when we get these new runway lights on 1129, the maintenance is gonna drop off on that. We've got very low maintenance on taxiway Bravo or Alpha and 523 as far as the runway lights. Everything works.
So Mike, in other words, you're in Easy Street.
Yeah.
You're probably the only airfield guy who's coming in where you're just gonna sit back and have to do nothing.
Yeah.
I don't.
And you're still gonna have Mr. Fryer, you're still gonna have Mr. Fryer out there every day too. So I mean, that's, overseeing it all, so.
Yeah.
Out on the airfield.
So I think we'll be in good shape or better shape, I'll say.
All right, unless anyone has any questions, that's all I have, Chairman.
All right, thank you, Ms. Cersey. Ms. Rotowski, city updates.
So just a couple of things that happened over the last month. One, thank you to all who attended the Florida League of Cities dinner at the Keystone Beach. The Keystone Beach is now open again after our second phase of renovations, and it looks fantastic. Sheer Construction did an amazing job. If you haven't been out there, come see me and I'll take you out there, give you a tour. It's just great enhancements for our community. Moving into Motor Surf was a fantastic, phenomenal event. So if you had the capability of coming out and seeing it, I mean, it was something that Keystone Heights in this area has never seen before. We will be featured 2 different spots on primetime, one for the East Coast and one for the West Coast, and they're doing a half an hour slot, and it's really the story of Keystone Heights and Clay County and Motor Surf in general. So it's not Motor Surf specific, but really what our community does. So I talk about Keystone Heights and being recognized. That's going to be huge, seen across the world, really. Keystone Heights was named the #1 rural community in Florida, which is also huge. And I say that because a lot of us have been here in these positions for years in one way, shape, or form. And so that's just a huge, what we do together as a team. Moving forward, we have May 21st is going to be a Meet Your Neighbor Day. So I encourage the airport, any clubs or organizations to contact Christina, and I'll send Maria the flyer so she can send it out to the tenants. But it's really of who's involved in Keystone Heights. It's going to be Rotary, Kiwanis, Air Ops, the airport if they wish, just who are your movers and shakers and who does this, how do you get involved, adult softball leagues, things like that, and just a good time to meet who's out here.
Will that be at the Beach Pavilion?
It will actually be behind City Hall, so it'll be
Behind
like
City Hall.
a vendor show, or if you will.
What's the date?
May
What day
21st.
What day of the week is that?
That's a Saturday.
Saturday, yeah.
May 21st?
And what's the time on that, Lynn?
It's 10 to 1.
10 to
And I'll send you the flyer tomorrow so you can send it out, because it's great. It's just for organizations, clubs, and things like that, how to participate, how to be a part of the community. we are going to be May 12th, the council's going to be meeting with our engineer to do a recap of some of the projects that we're about to close out, our cemetery, and then an update on our streetscape, as well as moving forward with a parks master plan, so they're very excited for that. And then
That's on Thursday, March 12th, from 2 to 3:30, as I
yeah,
recall.
May 12th.
May
And
12th.
it's, what we call it, a city project?
City project
Yeah,
update?
city project update. And then, we talk about growth and development and where we're heading. May 19th at 6 PM, we are going to be having our planning and zoning meeting. It's gonna be a public hearing to discuss the 14 acres that's over there behind Revere Tire, behind Hitchcock's, and the proposed plan unit development that's going to be out there. With that being said.
Is that where that skateboard park or whatever this was started? Or?
Across the street.
Across the street.
Oh, okay, okay. And did you say the motor surf, is it, I mean, was it done live or is it gonna be aired?
It was live streamed. You could get online, go on YouTube, various pages. They streamed it live, and then CBS Sports picked it up. And so there's going to be 2 time slots that's going to be aired nationally.
But you don't know the dates yet?
Not yet, and so
Okay.
I will have that, and I'll send it out to Maria so she can send it out. We'll have all the
Okay.
information and probably view the raw footage on
I
Friday.
didn't make it down there. Did y'all have a pretty good turnout?
Fantastic turnout. So I had some of the racers seek me out, and one of them, he just looked at me, he goes, "Are you Miss Lynn?" I said, "I am." He goes, "I just want to hug you." I almost fell off my board racing yesterday. We've never had a crowd this big outside of our family
Okay,
to cheer us on. He says it was so cool. And then they did the award ceremony on Sunday. They said the same thing. They usually, it's just a small group that they race internationally. They were, it's just their family that's there cheering them on. And he says they've never really had spectators or a crowd.
Did you say there was over 6,000 throughout the weekend?
No, throughout the weekend between the spring fling, we're looking at probably the numbers closer to 2.
Okay.
Again, Airstream Ventures and Motor Surf, Motor Skate were extremely pleased with that number. We were a little nervous on the front end going into it. All of our businesses or restaurants, they were extremely excited to have them. Nicest people. Kind of reminds me of being here with pilots. It's just a really family oriented event. So they are hopeful to come back at least once next year, maybe more. And they were talking about expanding their event. They had 60 riders that when they opened it up to the public. And again, the max that they've had up until this point was 12. So they're looking at doing an academy for 4 days and then inviting different groups so that they can get numbers in the hundreds for that.
what's your, what does the fire marshal allow you to have head count in the beach area?
It varies for events depending on what we have down there. When we have a food truck, we're capped at about 3,000. When we don't have food trucks or things of that nature, then we're about 4,500.
That will fit in that beach area?
Yep. Well, so, I mean, right around this, the capacity for our pavilion is like 190.
Yeah, I couldn't remember it holding that many
It's
people.
sardines, but it's ridiculous.
Now, when he gets the water for the lake up, that number's gonna go down, right? Because the beach is gonna
Be a good problem to have.
Welcome that.
Yep.
Yeah,
You know that little swim platform that's out there? You're just gonna keep stacking those on there.
Exactly.
wow,
We'll have a boardwalk straight to the inside.
that's great,
Okay.
that's great.
All right.
Other things, that's all.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Rotowski. We appreciate all the city does. Kind of interesting comment from the meeting last night. At the end of the meeting, it's always city manager comments and then the city attorney comments. I've never heard Mr. Commando talk so much and brag on Ms. Lynn, and rightfully so for everything that's been going on, but also the Florida League of Cities dinner. It's like, okay, nobody is ever going to top it because of what was put together and at the pavilion, and you just had to be there. Knowing Mr. Commando, who is very short on comments.
He's never done that.
He's never done that before, and Ms. Rotowski, thank you for all you did to make that possible. You deserve all of that, so.
It's
All right.
definitely a team effort. I mean, the things that we've been able to accomplish, and I say we because we've been involved in it for years, making number 1 for rural communities in Florida. That's not something that happens overnight. That's years of work. And
Yep,
Yep.
yep. All right, we have completed everything on our agenda. We will consider ourselves adjourned at 7:41.
We have